Testing 1, 2, 3. Good. Testing 1, 2, 3. Wow, this still feels. Oh crap, the effects also influences the sound of other buildings. Yeah, okay, this is a serious problem. I don't know how to fix it. So the music from the boombox is tied to the effect sound of everything else effects-wise, which includes buildings, radiation, mechanical parts, all that stuff. And I just want to turn down the boombox music. Okay. So I think that takes care of that problem. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. The other sound coming from? The waterfall? Oh. Didn't realize the waterfall also made. How bad is that? Okay. I think we're gonna do. Oops. The last stream I didn't realize how awful the audio imbalance was. Alright, let's do another test. Okay, I think that's good. Hopefully, the audio won't be as loud music-wise, and you talk. going to continue building our nuclear power plant blueprint stack to ridiculous, impossible heights. Mostly because memes. You're also on the experimental branch. Like to live dangerously, I suppose. And yeah, I like working at this waterfall because it's got nice scenery, but also it has very amazing lighting. I can see so much, or I can see way better in the dark anywhere else on the island here because we have clear line of sight between the sun rising and the sun setting. For most of the time working in good visible light most of the time. But yeah, I wish there was a way to, I wish there was a console command that allowed me to change the lighting, or change the sun or whatever. Apparently that foliage that's stuck up in the sky, I thought that was my bad from a previous playthrough, but apparently in this new playthrough it's still there, so I think that's a bug. I don't think that's supposed to be there. So yeah, so this is our nuclear power plant. So our goal is to build a nuclear power plant stack that takes in 300 uranium, and this will run 15 overclocked reactors, and they're going to be all vertically stacked, which is totally unnecessary, but I decided to commit to it just for the memes at this point. And then on top of the reactors, we're going to put the supporting nuclear factory on top of that. And I just finished building the water logistics on the back side of the blueprint, so we have a total of 16 vertical sushi lines going up, or not sushi lines, these are water lines. Vertical water lines going up, and 16 water lines going down. And it's an alternating series of ups and downs. Excuse me. And then we have this very complicated merger array and splitter array that extracts the packaged water and returns the returns the empty canisters back down the stack. So what I'm actually going to do now, or soon, hopefully this stream, is I'm going to build the 15 reactors right off the bat, and I'm going to hook up all the water extractors to them to make sure that this internal logistics that I built actually functions, because it may not work. There's a possibility that there's a fundamental mathematical flaw with how this array is going to behave, and I need to test that to verify if it's going to work or not. So, because we have 16 lines, I'm going to put a maximum of 16 vertical reactors just to push this system to the max to make sure there's no flow issues whatsoever. And I'm avoiding using pipes this run because I've experienced so many problems with consistency with water flow in pipes that I decided to completely eliminate pipes entirely and just use vertical lifts, because those appear to be way more consistent. Yeah. And yeah, and I did a pretty good job, I feel like, in terms of compactifying and rerouting and contouring all of these different internal logistics, like the pipe here and the belts here, because I did something that I'd never done before, which was I'm able to open up the light that's going to come out of the reactor, so you can actually see it without any obstruction. And then for the first time I've ever done this before, we're also including a water packager embedded into the reactor itself. I've never done that before, so this is definitely a first. But you can see the memes here and how ridiculously oversized the supporting logistics it is required to make this work. And yeah, and then I also built these packagers for the water extractors. This is basically a water extractor rigging blueprint. You can literally put your tiles down and then put your water extractors down using the tiles, glass tiles, as a incremental nudger to get everything exactly where you want it positioned on some type of grid. And then you place this down and you literally put the water extractor on this side and that side of this junction, and then the water comes up and it goes into these packagers. But I'm going to redesign this packager. I'm going to flip these packagers around so that to make it easier for me on connecting all of these input and output lines to these lines here. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to preload all of these reactors with Fixonium. I'm assuming you can do that. I've never done that before, but I have preloaded other blueprints with other parts, mostly empty canisters. But yeah, I'm going to preload this with just Fixonium so we don't produce any waste, just to stress test the system to make sure that it's working properly before we continue to build other aspects of the system, because I am concerned that this system that I built may not operate correctly as it's supposed to. Yep. And then for those who may not have seen last stream, I actually built an entire logistics network for this nuclear factory completely underground. So for example, you'll see that we have oil that's being extracted. How far away is that? Is that 2 kilometers? I think it's 1.5 kilometers. I'd be surprised if this was 2 kilometers. Yeah, it's 1.5 kilometers. That's what I thought. Which is 1.5 kilometers away, and we're extracting other various resources across the map. What's really nice about this particular map that I've made, or this playthrough on this map that I made, is that I essentially have made a test bed system where you have access to pretty much everything you need. Well, sort of. You have access to one Mark 7 of everything you need, resource-wise, so to create a test bed of different factory designs. And I normally don't have to do this. I can just do like a save editor, and I can just add an infinite number of items here using a save editor. However, I'm not using any save editors because I don't want Coffee Stain to ignore any bug crashes I find just because my files have been modified by a save editor. I want to make sure that I'm completely uncorrupted modification wise, so that they have to take any bugs I find seriously. But yeah, this was a trick that I discovered from a friend in the Satisfactory community called Zula, or Amonis Zula. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce his name. But yeah, he taught me how to build underground, and that was really dope. Because I did some previous playthroughs where I wasn't happy with the ugliness of routing long distance logistics on top of the map. I didn't really like the look of that. I really just would like to hide it. And this is exactly what underground logistics does. So this right here, to build underground logistics, you build a blueprint that has a hypertube like this, and you place it down using H, and then you just use the page down button to move it down. And now you can start building underground. But this is very tricky, very finicky, because if you're underwater, then you have to make sure that you actually get pushed below the water, because if you get stuck in the water, then you're just floating in the water and you can't actually move down. So you have to build around those particular issues. I think you gain enough momentum that you actually push past the giant body of water. And keep in mind, I was doing everything with no power turned on and flying enabled, so it's going to be way more tricky for someone else to do this in a vanilla playthrough, but I think it's technically possible. You just have to be careful on where you're dropping down, because if you don't have, well, okay, I should have added qualified something here. You need to have a hover pack, obviously. Like, I don't know how you would be able to do this without a hover pack. It would be insanely difficult without a hover pack. But yeah, you have to make sure that you don't move past the electricity radius. And that can be a bit tricky, because I don't think that you can actually clear the distance here with the body of water underneath. Just using a hover pack. You may have to do something else, like maybe build over there and then kind of build this way. But I believe it's still technically possible. It's just it's way easier to do this when I'm using free-flying cheating mode. But yeah, so this is underground. We're going through the water, and then we go underneath, and then you'll see we have this giant, elaborate underground logistics network that I built using blueprints, and from here I'm able to extract all of the resources that I need to make this blueprint, this underground logistics possible. And there you can see, thanks to the glass foundations, you can see the the rune sun, I like to call it, named after a famous streamer on Satisfactory called Rune Sun. Yeah. And now you can see all these different belts here. So this is the bauxite belt that we built. Yeah, way over. I think that's the oil over there. And yeah, then you go up like this. Some of these textures are actually false textures. Like, for example, this looks like a body of water, like we're about to hit a body of water, but no, it's not actually a body of water. It's just texture. There are bodies of water, and those are kind of dangerous to get stuck into, because you'll be stuck. It's like being trapped under ice in a river, where you can't break past the ground barrier above the water. So sometimes that will happen, so you gotta watch out for that. But I have been able to escape those areas. But yeah, so I don't think you can pass through. Oh, that's a good question, actually. How did I get past this? Alright, I'm actually legitimately confused right now. How is that connected? Oh no, there's a second one, that's why. I forgot. Okay, yeah, I did this in 2 stages. Yeah, there's actually 2 of these back to back. So this is just an example of multiple textures. So some of these mountains are very tricky to penetrate, because it looks like the devs, when they were landscaping the structures, they were putting structures on top of structures. So, although I actually maybe not this one. I think this one has something underneath of it. Oh, so this is a bad example because this is supposed to be here. This gap right here, that's supposed to be there technically speaking. Yep. In terms of professional satisfactory playing, I should probably close that off so you don't see that clipping there and there too as well. But this is I'm not super concerned about that right now because I'm mostly building just the blueprints. But yeah, I mean, if you want to be more professional about this, then I would close this off with concrete or whatever, just so that it doesn't look like flipping. Actually, I guess I could do that right now. And it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, so I think there was at least one instance where I had to do this twice, not because the devs intentionally wanted you to have this open space down below, but because it was legitimately a texture on top of a texture because of some landscape remodeling that they did. But yeah, this is a false body of water. And yeah, this is all vanilla, again, just to clarify if that wasn't clear. This is all vanilla. There's no mods were used to build this, but I did cheat using advanced settings like I said, so the biggest thing here is flight mode. But I believe that it is technically possible to do this in vanilla, and I think Azula, Amonis Azula does this in vanilla as well. But yeah, you have to be way more careful. You have to be more methodical about it, because you could easily just throw yourself away down this abyss without being connected to electrical power. And yes, you have to... I strongly recommend you use a hover pack. That would be extremely dangerous not to use a hover pack. Incredibly risky. But I believe it's also technically possible. You could use do this without a hover pack. But yeah, I think you cannot do this without a hypertube. You can build underground without a hypertube. I've done that before. You just have to go like off the island south side, and then there's like a gap for you to go through the texture wall and build underneath. You can do that without a hypertube, but the reason why you need a hypertube is because you need to go through the ground in order to connect things. You cannot like connect to a belt from the top through the bottom, because the texture will actually block your ability to actually grab onto a logistics endpoint. So that's why you need these blueprints to build stuff through the walls. Alright, so let's see if we can redesign this packager here. Oh, his name is Amonis Azula. He was the one that, he's an amazing person. He was the one that taught me how to do this. So assuming the devs never patch that out of the game, the ability to build underground, which I hope they never do, I think we all should be building underground. At least when you're building large-scale logistics networks, because I feel like it's a crime to build anything above ground because there's such a beautiful landscape. It feels like a crime to me to cover it over with ugly logistics. But that's just my opinion anyway. Alright. Yeah, when I do like an actual vanilla playthrough in the far future, I'm definitely going to do an underground logistics challenge. But yeah, it will not be easy though, because I won't have access to fly mode. Alright, so I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do this. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this stuff here. Okay, I'm gonna connect those together. Yeah, these dangling cables here, they're aligned with the electrical connection points for the water extraction. Either there. Yeah, just double checking. So this port right here, this output is going to connect into. That means we have to flip this one. Delete all of this. Okay, like that. And I'm going to all of this. Okay, and then we're going to grab this one and we're going to put it here. Yeah, I do have another concern about these blueprints, which is they might be too expensive because so the whole idea of these blueprints was to give them to like a new player who's just like playing straight vanilla, and something that I think could really make this like next level impossible for a new player is because you have to physically hold all of the items in your inventory in order to actually build it. And yeah, I am concerned that if you try to actually build this, you may not be able to fit all of the stuff in your inventory space. Alright. Continue. Yeah, I'm not really sure how to connect all. Alright, we'll see if those are. Yeah, I think you should be able to fit this in your inventory. Alright, so we found a mistake. Let's go fix it. Thanks, Tam, for joining my stream. I appreciate your support. So again, I'm just making sure that before we duplicate these blueprints across the board, that they're actually working properly so we don't have to rip them out. Well, imagine trying to hook all this up by hand. Blueprints, that would drive me insane. That's a lot of belts. that's a lot of logistics. Alright. And then the last two are for the factual factory. I gotta figure out how to get this connected. Yeah, I made a mistake when I put this together. I should have put a gap between these so that I can change directions on, yeah. That was my bad. Yeah, I'm gonna have to redo this because I don't think there's enough distance to make a turn with these. Okay, I think that should be enough to clear since oh. Oh crap, I didn't notice that. Oh, yeah, okay, I made a bad mistake. Didn't notice this. These do not alternate the way I thought they did. Okay. Hmm. So, I guess we'll just have to, alternate. That was my bad. I thought I, yeah. So I'm just gonna cheat. I'm just gonna crisscross that last one. That was my bad. Yeah, okay, that's alright, it's fine. Oh, probably should have verified this was lined up. Yeah, so what I'd have to do is I'd have to make like a separate water extractor blueprint and just reverse the direction of those. But yeah, that's a lot of work just to do a little crisscross. So I turned the sound effect audio off so you guys don't get spammed by all that noise coming out. Alright, and now we're gonna redo all these connections again. Uh, Alright, so those are all connected. Okay. Alright, so I guess what we can do is just boot it up. Alright, let's do it. Okay, so we're primed with this, let's see if this turns on. Alright, so we got a little packaged water going down the line. Whee, look at it go! Super fast! Oh, it's cutting across. It's going this way. It's going up, up and up and up and up. Going into this thing, which has no power. Whoops. Alright, so we gotta turn the power on. Got across here and there. Alright. Water is going in! Woo! Holy crap. We have power! Woo! Okay, so we'll take notice that it looks like all the belts are being utilized to some degree. Okay. Okay. I'll be right back. I'm gonna use the restroom and then we'll do a more extensive test. Okay, I'm back. Okay. So that's pretty good, but yeah, we're gonna have to connect. We're gonna have to connect 16 of these stack. So yeah, that will take a while. My eyes! I'm blind! Too much particle effects being blasted in my eyes! Alright, so we gotta go, now we gotta connect everything. So, first thing I'm gonna do is connect the power. Okay. And then connect all else, which is This would have been really nice, Coffee Stain, if we could auto-complete these vertical lifts, please. Like, holy crap. This is gonna be mind-numbingly long. Yeah, I think what I might have to do, make this more accessible to new players. I'm gonna have to, uh, build the cosmetics separately. Sure, you can easily install the cosmetics. I think making cosmetics built into the blueprint, I think that might be too much. This is starting to feel like a ridiculous Andrew build in terms of just the sheer number of logistics. So he's probably done way more than this, but it just feels obnoxiously a lot for something that shouldn't be that big. It's only like 300 uranium per minute, and I have to build this ridiculously scaled up oversized logistics system, compensate. Dredged uranium, that's crazy. Mostly because of the water. Water is the thing that's... Which, for those who may not know, because somebody might be wondering, why don't you just use pipes? Well, again, I can't guarantee the pipes are going to work, because I built, my previous system that I built over there in another playthrough just didn't work. Some weird flow issue that was occurring. So I was like, yeah, we are scrapping pipes entirely, and turns out that the number of pipes and belts that you need doesn't really change that much, because you would think like it's like, well, you only need half as many pipes because you don't have a return pipe, but like you kind of have to have a return pipe, to be honest, because if you want to run, so if you want to avoid you consuming an insane amount of power from pumping fluids up vertically, you have to use a return pipe. Because, and I've tried this before, if you try to use the free head lift trick and you try to run it as a vertical stacked manifold, it will not work. The water pressure will drop because the water's being desegmentated during water piping into the buildings. Breaks the line of gravitational free head lift. Yeah, that's the problem with doing that way. For those who are wondering, why is there a huge gap between lifts as opposed to like bringing or tightening the gap? And the answer is because the foot of this reactor is in the way. If you try to move the floor cover down, it will collide with the call it the clearance box is going to collide with the floor cover reactor, and it's not going to work. So I had to move cover up, even though there's no clipping at all. Like you can clearly see there's no clipping here between the lift and the reactor, but the clearance box is still substantial bottom, so that's why I can't do it. This is the watching paint dry stream. Yeah, I think what I should have done was try to come up with a more robust test with the single blueprint than. Although do that. I honestly don't know how you would robustly test logistics network without connecting everything. Conceive of a test that will do that. Because like I could just connect individual lines one at a time, but like that's not gonna test the entire network max capacity. Alright, nice. Okay, so all the logistics are connected now. Now we need to test, see if the water is working. Oops. And you'll notice that I've oriented everything so that the light source from the reactor is facing northeast of the island, because we are positioned on the southwest of the island, which means that somewhere, if you're somewhere on the island, you could probably see the light coming from the reactors. So, but I doubt it. I think the render distance on them has to be no more than a kilometer. Alright, so let's turn this baby on. Woo! With the power of water. Right, we're gonna turn all of these on like this. Oh, I forgot to turn on all the pipes. My bad. Dude, I wish we could get rid of this radiation, man. This radiation is really annoying. Setting for that. Alright, look at that. Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it gorgeous? Look at all of that water in visual movement form. Oh, wow. It's so beautiful. It makes me want to cry. I'm gonna Google this real quick. Way to disable the rate. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Alright. So a long time ago, I built a giant rocket fuel power plant, and I initially built all of the vertical stacked fuel generators with pipes to pipe up the nitrogen gas, and that was a complete disaster. The last 25% of all the generators weren't turning on, and the solution to the problem was to literally package all the rocket fuel gas and then unpackage it at the fuel generator blueprint, and that actually worked. Um, okay, it looks like there might be a console command. Let's try that. Show debug radiation. Shows run it again to hide it. That's unfortunate. I thought that would work. Alright, okay, so now we need to check all the reactors to make sure that... Well, I find this very, very suspicious to me. find this very suspicious. Yeah, I find this very suspicious because it feels like it's too good to be true. I suspected that there would be a problem, but yeah, I don't see a problem happening. But yeah, so this is the reason why. This is the reason why I want to build factories where you completely expose belts on the outside, and this is because you can clearly see some happening dynamically, so. Yeah, I find it hard to believe this is actually working out of the box. I really, really thought that it was not going to work. There was going to be some weird behavior that I couldn't take into account. So far, I can't seem to identify it. I think one potential behavior problem. Oh, actually, yeah, this could be. Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, not perfect, but yeah, this is potentially a problem I didn't think about here. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So, yeah, okay, yeah, alright. I see a problem here. So, a problem that's already beginning to form right now is these lines at the back are bleeding out or losing packages because the linear manifold that redistributes everything um, is not evenly distributing everything back onto the lines. So yeah, that is a potential problem. I don't think it will break the factory per se, but I think what we're gonna have to do is let this run for much longer than I anticipated, because yeah, there's a possibility that this may fail at a much longer time scale because these lines are going to they'll slowly dry out essentially. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to fail, I think. I think more likely what's going to happen is these buffers are going to start filling up. Because I think what's going to happen is the packages are going to redistribute themselves to start filling up the lines as we go down the stack. So yeah, when I build the when I put the actual sushi lines on this on on these two faces of the blueprint, I'm gonna put the inputs of the sushi line on this wall in the sink output on this side for the return, and that's because of this problem with this right here. There's a lot of visual clutter from all this steam that's going to be getting in the way of things. Yeah. So again, yeah, this is kind of unfortunate that the angle of viewing is very, very narrow here for the reactor because of the fact that these logistics do take up space. But this is still much better than the previous design that I made, because you can clearly see the reactors lighting up. So that's really nice. So yeah, this is purely the only reason to stack these vertically, is to get this really cool visual effect at this very tall tower with a very narrow light slit in between them. That's mostly the only reason why you would do this. But yeah, so unfortunately, it looks like, oh, I guess those light sources aren't turned on. Sorry, let me go back and turn on. So yeah, so something that I noticed about reactors is you literally have to get close to them to force the game to turn on the lights within them, unless it's turned off, which I don't think. Yep. So I have to visually go up the stack just to force the game to turn these light sources on. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Oh no, it failed! It failed! See, I knew that was gonna happen. Okay. Alright, so yeah, okay, that's what I was worried about. Okay. Alright. So we found a failure point. Okay. So now I gotta figure out why it's failing. Oh, you know what? Another reason why it could be failing is there just may not be enough packagers in general. That also could be causing the problem as well. Yeah, that actually could be the other reason. Failing. Not enough, could maybe there may not be enough empty canisters. Alright, so yeah, I just put more empty canisters in there, so we'll see if that fixes the problem or not. I don't understand why there's that light source right there. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna move away from stack to see how far the lights. We're about a kilometer out. Yeah. So I can still see the yellow or orange core, but yeah, the light is now off at when I go past a kilometer. Every second that goes by, this packager is literally uncorking a bottle, 5 bottles, and pouring them all out in five or in in two, was it 200 milliseconds? Every 200 milliseconds, it uncorks a bottle and pours it all out and throws it onto the lift and then grabs the next one, all in under 200 milliseconds. That's insane. That's like the amount of time that it takes for light to wrap around the Earth. That's insane. Yeah, I guess I'm at a loss here on this actual scale of this reactor setup because I thought having this many number of storage containers would be sufficient for populating the entire stack, but that does not appear to be the case. Oh, whoops, I forgot to... So yeah, again, I'm just running this test, water test, because it's not clear to me if the way that I design the logistics for the water is actually, or if there's a bug in the connections. You know, any number of things could be wrong with this. That's why I'm doing this stress test before we move on to the next stages. So I think we can confidently say that um, that the entire stack is being hydrated. Thanks, Tam. I appreciate that. Thank you. But we're not done yet. We still got a ways to go before this reactor gets up and running. But I appreciate that, Tam. Thank you so much. I think we can confidently say that the hydration part of the logistics is working, because if we weren't able to fully if the hydration was not able to fully supply all the reactors, we would clearly see that happening right now, and that does not appear to be the case. The thing that's in question now is there anything wrong with the return line that's returning all the canisters back? That's the part I'm not sure about, because the canister level is slowly dropping, and that's because the reason why the canister line is dropping here is because the game is redistributing the canisters across all the different lines as it propagates, because you have to take into account that we're only supplying 600 canisters per minute on each line, but each line can output or flow 780 per minute, which means that there's going to be excess capacity, which means that things are going to be shuffled around on the lines or redistributed across the lines. Yeah, no worries, Tam. Yeah, I'm not done yet. I still got a ways to go, because the next thing we got to do is we got to build the factory that's going to sit on top of this thing, which is, there's a very good chance that the factory itself might actually go to the skybox. I haven't actually calculated how big the factory is going to be yet, but the factory can only be 50 blueprints tall the last time I did the math. So, and the factory is going to take all these raw inputs that are being uh, uh, gathered from the underground. Oh, Tam, did I show you the underground logistics network that I built to route all of these items to this location? I may not have showed you that. I could show you that real quick as well, if you're curious. So yeah, this is not really something the devs intended in the game, but it was something that another user named Amonis Zula showed me. What I built here is a blueprint that contains a bunch of vertical lifts and a hypertube. And what I do is I penetrate the ground with this blueprint. So I press H to hold it in place, and then I press page down to move the blueprint down into the ground like this. Okay. And now this allows me to directly route logistics and myself through the ground. And I'll show you, and I'll demonstrate that right now. So right here is the hypertube that goes directly into the ground. So if I go down, I'm going to go through the water and then into the logistics network that's completely underground. So this makes everything super tidy. I don't have to look at ugly belts moving across the landscape because everything is now underground. You can also see the second sun underneath the island as well, which is pretty insane. So I built all of this. It only took me a few hours, I think, to build it. Yeah, this is the end. So over there is the oil. Over here is the bauxite. And then you have the uranium and the quartz. We can actually head over. I'll actually take you over to the oil node over there. So you can see what that looks like if we pop out of it. Alright, so we're gonna go this way. So we have two lines for the oil. We have a line for the empty canisters, and then we have a line for the packaged oil. I'm not using any pipes anymore in Satisfactory because the last nuclear plant that I made in my previous playthrough, I built a very long pipe network to pipe all the water, and it failed. The water was not flowing, and I talked to several people about it, and they couldn't figure it out. So that indicated to me that I can't guarantee stability. Wow, there's a lot of frame drops over there. Looks like the game is trying to render something that's not there, that I can't see. But yeah, so this is the oil node. This is a bit tricky to build. Whoops. See, I already made a mistake. Yeah, so I did not want to do that. So yeah, this is a bit tricky to do because there's like a giant block of water, and then there's an empty void below the block of water. And if you accidentally touch the water, you're basically suspended in water, and you can't go down. You can only go up. But yeah, I'm mostly using packagers just because they're more consistent in terms of working. So yeah, so unfortunately, because I'm in the water, I can't go down, which means I cannot access the hypertube, and I'm hitting a boundary that is above the water surface. So I'm gonna just swim around until I'm out of the water. Oh look, you can grab. Wait, can you grab? Yeah, you can grab this this slug. I think maybe I don't know. No, I guess you can't grab it. Maybe you can grab it. Wow, that's funny. You can grab the slug without breaking the thing. So yeah, so here, so this is kind of unfortunate that when you're inside the ground texture, you can't pass through it, and you can't build anything through it. That's why you need the hypertube and the logistics blueprint to pass through it. And I hope the devs do not patch this out of the game, because I think building underground is really awesome. But I don't know. Sometimes you can pass through the boundary, but right now I can't do it. So I guess I'll just use the blueprint to get out. And because I have advanced mode settings enabled, I don't need to worry about powering it up or anything. Here it is. I think, yeah. So I just build that. Then I should be able to just pass through now. Oh, that's right. Power is not turned on, or power is disabled. Okay, so I use the cheat mode to turn the power on. Okay, and now I'm out of the ground. So yeah, this is the oil node. So again, we're piping all of the or sorry, we're belting all of the oil from this node, and wow, GP, we got a massive GP frame drop there. And then it goes through this hole right here, and it goes back down. So I can safely go down, and I'll go past the water barrier, and I'm back below. So yeah, I guess the point I was trying to say is that I'm not entirely sure how you would build this without using cheat mode, or sorry, I gotta be more specific here. Yeah. So I'm using two cheats here. I'm using flying for free, and electricity is turned on. And yeah, it's not clear to me how you would do this with a hover pack and you have to use electricity, because you could easily fling yourself past the electricity of the hypertube and kill yourself. And you kind of need to have some momentum to fling yourself out, because this hypertube is still embedded in the water. So you need to use that momentum to push yourself down enough so that you can actually get past the water barrier. So this block right here, this foundation, this is like kind of like where the invisible barrier is for the water. But once you're at this position, you can still build stuff. Like I can still reach and grab the sort of like, yeah, I can sort of reach for the yeah. Actually, I could test this right now, actually. I'm actually curious to see if this is even possible. Oh, no, we can't do that. I forgot. Electricity is not routed from the other side. Never mind. I can't really test this. But yeah, if I do another vanilla playthrough, I'll definitely take on the challenge of building underground without using cheats, because I'm curious to see if you can actually do it. Just a hover pack. Alright, so I'm gonna head back. And yeah, this entire glass tunnel that I made, that's all blueprinted. Pretty straightforward to blueprint all of that. So unlike with the reactors, I had to connect all the vertical lifts individually because the game doesn't support auto connect with those blueprints. But when you're building horizontally, you can auto connect the belts. So that is a super convenience factor here that we have access to with building horizontally. Alright, so now I'm heading back. Yeah, and I just thought it'd be funny to build everything in glass, because I have seen other people build underground tunnels before in Satisfactory, but they always build them with concrete because they want to hide all of the horrible visual textures that are underneath the island. I just thought it'd be kind of a meme to build the underground tunnel in glass so you can see all the hideous textures from below. But yeah, and another design mistake that I made was I should have put the hypertube on the top of the tunnel instead of the bottom floor. That way you can see all of the oh wow, you can see all the belts through the water. That's cool. Whee! All right, we are back. So yeah, thank you so much for that engagement, Tan. That means a lot to me. Thank you. Excuse me. All right. Let's see. How we doing on the water here? Water is still doing the water. Still have... Oh, have we achieved equilibrium? No, we haven't. It's still going down. Okay. So yeah, unfortunately, this belt system is still not at equilibrium. As far as I can tell, anyway. Alright, I'm heading back up the stack. And we're going to go check out the... oh, Tam, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I redesigned the reactor blueprint to part these internal logistics away from the center of the reactor, so you can actually see the light blue that's coming off of the reactor. This is actually a pretty sick visual, in my opinion, because if you move away from the reactor about 1 kilometer, you can actually see all the column of blue light that is coming from the stack, which I really like. It makes it look like a futuristic alien technology kind of vibe. I kind of felt. And what's really cool is you can even see the blue reflecting off the water as well. It's really dope. Because like in the previous design that I made, the belts and the pipes that fed into the reactor were literally blocking the blue light, and I thought that was a bad mistake on my part. So I fixed that problem, and now we have blue light shining outside the blueprint. Alright, so we're gonna go up the stack, and we're gonna check this reactor here. Okay, that looks good. That looks good. Looks good. Yeah, so yeah, I'm definitely confident that we can definitely hydrate all 16 reactors using this manifold that I built. I'm just not super confident right now that we can actually return all the empty canisters, because we haven't achieved equilibrium yet on the empty canister side of things. Which I think that would require a longer test to actually verify that. There's a possibility that one of these belts may not be connected properly, because there's a lot of belts here that had to connect. So there could be one belt that's not connected properly, and I have no idea. But honestly, it may not matter, because one could make the argument that this system is pretty redundant. So if there's one belt missing somewhere, there's a possibility that it may be the system might be redundant enough to handle that. So the goal of these blueprints is to, well, I guess you can mass produce mass produce the nuclear power plants. That's one aspect of it. But the other aspect of it was to give it to new players, players that had never built a nuclear power plant before, or players that just want to quickly deploy a nuclear reactor from scratch. That's what these blueprints would allow you to do. But unfortunately, no one has ever actually used any of the nuclear blueprints that I've built. So that's unfortunate. So it's not clear to me if there's some inaccessible aspect to it that I haven't foreseen yet. But yeah, I have been trying to advertise to the community, like, hey, try these blueprints out. Tell me if you like them or not. Oh, Tam. Something else that I forgot to mention that's super nice is I blueprinted the water extractors. Because nobody wants to build water extractors. Water extractors are super boring, super tedious. But yeah, I built a blueprint that allows me to easily spam water extractor placement. But there's a few workarounds I had to do to make it work. Because you cannot put water extractors in the blueprints. That is a huge negative. Yeah. So you cannot put water extractors in the blueprint, which is kind of bad. But I can still build all kinds of other things around the water extractor. So that's what this blueprint does. So this blueprint pretty much builds everything else around the water extractor, including all the pipes, even the electrical outlet. I literally built the electrical outlet so that it's literally in line with the water extractor. I don't know if I can simulate this. But if you place the water extractor at the correct position, you'll see that the electrical outlet that dangles below actually lines up with the water extractor. But I discovered, unfortunately, that you cannot put tiles on the bottom. I found out the hard way that if you put tiles down in the blueprint, then it collides with the clearance of the water extractor, and you cannot place the water extractor down. So that is a huge negative, but again, we can work around it by just literally removing all of those, removing all of that. So I'll actually simulate what this would look like. So to make this work, what you do is you put down 4 rows of tiles and you exclude the middle one. And then you put down the water extractor like this. Now, oh, sorry, I screwed up here. I forgot that we are not below the water. Sorry, so my bad. So there's an extra step you have to do here. So you have to establish the height level for the water extractor for a foundation, which I neglected to show that step. So yeah, you got to do a little bit of experimentation, but you basically just keep putting the glass foundation lower and lower into the water until it snaps into place with respect to the water extractor. So and then that establishes the correct height for these foundations. And the reason why we're putting the foundations in the water is because if they are at the correct height, then you have snapping, point snapping for the water extractor. So this allows you to precisely position the water extractor where you want it within the grid, the world grid. If you just move the water extractor over a body of water with no tiles, then you have continuous movement, and there's no way to precisely guarantee the placement of the water extractor. And then I just align the the pool ladder to line up with the corner of the tile, like that. And now they are positioned precisely with respect to the blueprint. And then I've just put down a dummy tile here to build against. And then I grab the rigging, the wire extractor rigging blueprint, which then I align it like this, and then I just plop it down. This makes the job way easier. So even though you still have to manually place the water extractors down, I can still cut down the time of putting all this together much more quickly. Then the next thing you got to do is you grab your pipe, set it to noodle node, because unfortunately this junction is not at the correct height. Respect to the water extractor is slightly lower, but that's okay. The noodle will bend down a little bit to compensate. Whoa, that looks misaligned. Oh, that's because yeah, once the blueprint is placed down, you can't build Oh, actually, something else I forgot to mention, Tam, that's also important here. Super nice to know is that if you activate your delete mode and you press middle mouse button, you create a copy of that building, and then then it will include all of the overclock and power shards included in the building, which makes placement a lot faster. Okay, so notice how that ladder is lined up with the corner of the tile, and notice that we've inherited this overclock in these shards as well. Faster placement. Alright, down here. Okay, so hopefully that's now correct, and now we're gonna grab this thing again, and my orientation. Lost my orientation, there it is. Okay, so this goes here. Line it up. And bam, there we go. Now they're lined up. Okay, and now we activate noodle mode, because everybody loves noodles. And we noodle it together like this. Okay. And unfortunately, we do have to connect all the electricity, but we have convenience on our side. The electricity is literally right there. Place those down, place that down, and then we just connect that together, and there you go. The water extractor is fully deployed, ready to go and start hydrating. Woohoo! Isn't that amazing, Tam? Right. We got some leftover noodles we gotta clean up. Whoops. Alright. Frame drops! Frame drops! Ah! The frames! My frames! I'm losing my frames! Alright, we are still slowly losing empty canisters, I think. Yep. We have not achieved equilibrium. How we doing on fixonium over here? I'm using these fixonium rods because they don't produce any nuclear waste. I don't know, are you familiar with fixonium fuel rods, Tam? I don't know if you've ever used them before. Okay, so yeah, so a standard nuclear reactor, which is the one that we're building, it produces uranium fuel rods, which they burn and turn into uranium waste. And then we have a recycling facility that recycles the uranium waste into plutonium rods. And then we sink the plutonium rods. That's how we used to do it before 1.0. After 1.0, Coffee Stain introduced fixonium rods, which means that we can now sink the plutonium waste. Because before 1.0, if you tried to burn a plutonium rod, it would create plutonium waste, and then you couldn't sink the plutonium waste. But with the introduction of fixonium rods, you can turn the plutonium waste into fixonium rods, and then you can burn the fixonium rods, and they don't produce any waste. However, I won't be doing that for this design because that makes things even more complicated, and it's not technology that you would have access to until you completed phase 4. And it's kind of a meme because yes, you can generate power from the plutonium rods and the fixonium rods, but the factory infrastructure that is required to process all of that and power it is just so huge that most players don't even bother doing that. And it's considered a meme, but you can do that. But yeah, it's not super practical. Especially if if you're stuck at phase 4 of the technology tree. I should have clarified this earlier. The entire nuclear factory that I'm building uses technology that is below phase 4, so that any player that wants to transition into phase 4 with a larger factory can still deploy this reactor at that lower technology tier. Alright. Yeah, so I'm pretty confident that it's working at this point. I guess what I'll do is I'll just let it run some more off screen, and I'm actually gonna end stream because it's actually time for me to end stream now. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. I should be back online on Tuesday from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll continue building factory from the nuclear power plant from there. Alright, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.